Hi everyone, thank you for clicking on this video. I'm going to show you how I do the signatures today. So these are the signatures, they are the little groupings of pages, and I have 4 signatures here, and each signature contains 10 pages or 10 pieces of paper, and I'm going to sew those in. So to sew them in, I've made myself a template. I've digitalised the template because I was using it and then I was losing it, and then you can only use it so many times before the hole ends up being too big, and then it just ends up being a mess. So you have to throw it away, then I have to redo it. Anyway, I thought this one I now have stored on my desktop and I can print it off whenever I need to print it off and use it. And I've also done an A5 size one as well. So all I do, I've measured it out exactly as I would if I was drawing it on a piece of paper myself. So where each line crosses, I'm going to make a hole. And I've just folded it down the edge of each side. I've actually got some faint grey lines so I know where to fold it, and that then fits it into my 2.5 inch spine just nicely. So I've done that and created all my holes top and bottom. This is the way I like to sew my signatures in if I'm doing it by hand. There are many different methods, and I might go through some of the different methods as I have a play with them, you know, in future videos when I'm making more journals. But for now, this is my sort of tried and tested method. I find it the easiest to manage to use, and it's the quickest for me as well to get my signatures sewn in. I also do like to use a sewing machine to sew in signatures. And I have shown you that in a previous video. I did that last year. So you can see now I've got my holes. I've got 4 at the top, 4 in the middle and 4 at the bottom. And I'm going to use the same template to create the holes in the actual signatures. So I'm using my cutter here and my nail just to line it up, and I'm just going to run down one of those lines. You can obviously use a bone folder if you want to be a bit more technical than me, or you can just simply fold it. You can eyeball it and fold it. I just have my cutter to hand, so I use that. So you can see that line now is scored, and I'm going to fold that in half, and I'm going to use that now to tuck inside my signature to punch the holes through. And then you know your holes are going to match up exactly with the holes that you've now created on your spine. So it just makes sense to use the same template for the entire process, and it really has made sewing these signatures in really easy. So the first thing you want to do, you want to be mindful of, is that you want to arrange your pages. So I don't want all my pages to sit at the bottom. I want some at the top, some in the middle, some at the bottom, where there are different size pages as you see here. So I'm just going to flick through my signature, and I'll do this for each one as I go along. I'm going to sew in one at a time. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm happy with the placement of everything. Because once you've made the hole, you're committed. It's going to have to go in that way. And I do generally take out the ephemera as well, unless it's something that's definitely not going to get in the way. I do take everything out of my journal before doing the signatures as well, because the last thing you want is for something to shift around and you punch a hole in a nice tag or journaling card that you've made yourself. That's not good. So you want to make sure that everything is as you want it, and you simply just tuck that into the crease. I will again clip it in place, and then I will punch the holes, and then we'll crack on with the actual sewing in the first signature. So I hope you're all doing very well. Just take a second to say that. I'm really grateful for all the support, lovely comments as always. Really appreciate it. I love sharing journaling, anything journaling, and there's lots. Now I've got my journal together, there's lots more to come by way of journal with me's, which obviously got a lot of attention over Christmas, and hopefully I won't disappoint in a regular non-Christmas journal. Though I do love my journals, and I use my journals for different reasons as well, and I may do a little bit of a chat on that a little bit further down the line if anybody's interested. So what I'm doing here now, that little top bit was flapping about, so I made sure to put the clips. I don't always use a clip on each corner, but for this one I have done. So keeping tight hold of those signatures, the holes, like the pages don't shift about. I've just unclipped the template, because obviously we don't want to sew that into our signature. I've pulled out a needle, and I'm using about 2 lengths of thread. You can see I'm being quite generous with this thread. This is waxed thread. You can use so many different things to sew yours in. Twine I use that in my Christmas book. Just regular cotton, perhaps doubled over, like embroidery floss, string. You could use whatever. The only thing I would recommend is if you're sewing it in by hand, which most of us do with junk journals, you want to make sure that your needle head is not too big, because obviously it's got to go through your hole, and you don't want your hole to get bigger and bigger as you're passing your needle through. So my loose end, you can see there in that pink clip on the right hand side, I've actually clipped the end of my thread in, and that helps me because then I know my thread isn't going to be pulled like entirely through, and I can tug on it, and it just allows me that sort of safety that I'm not going to end up getting halfway through my stitching and it's all coming loose. So I clip that in there, and I've started by going through the middle hole. Obviously, you go through the middle hole of the signature and through the middle hole on the spine as well. And then you want to come back through one of the other holes. So either the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter which way around you do it. I tend to come in the bottom hole because I'm right-handed, so that's what comes naturally to me, but it really doesn't matter. So you come through the bottom and through the signature. It looks quite, I think maybe it might be quite confusing to look at, but it's not. It's because the signature at this point is loose. So essentially, if you had them all pinned together, you were going through the middle, back up through one hole, you're going right down the spine to the other end. So you can see here I'm now going through the top hole to the back of the spine again. And then we're going to come through the middle hole again from the back. So you can see here, I'm pulling it a little bit tighter, but I'm not pulling everything tight till right at the end. So I've got a little bit of give between the signature and the spine, so I can get the needle through nice and easily. You don't need to pull everything tight until you've got to the point that you're getting ready to tie the two ends together. So I'm going back in the same hole, and that's going to come up. So you can see I'm pulling it right through that hole, and then because the signature is not pulled tight, I can now concentrate on getting it through the signature, as opposed to stressing out trying to find the hole from through the spine right up through the signatures. Sometimes that can get a bit stressful. So at this point you can unclip, and this is where you want to pull everything tight. When you're pulling it tight, and when you're coming through the middle hole again, you want to make sure, because you'll now have one big piece of string or twine or whatever you're using going down the centre. So you want these two loose ends to be on either side of that string, and then when you tie your knot, you'll be tying it over the string, and that'll make sure everything's really well secured into place. Now I'm just tightening mine. I'm pulling all the threads through to make sure everything's nice and secure, and I will tie it just in a double knot. Wax thread is really good for this because the nature of it, it's not going to come undone. It doesn't really pull. I found sometimes that with regular thread, when you're pulling on the thread to make sure it's nice and tight, I mean, you want to pull it quite firmly, but not too firm to the point that you could potentially be ripping your holes in your pages or pulling them and extending the holes. I find that can happen with regular cotton, but you can wax your own thread if you have wax. Even if you've just got a candle, just put pinch the thread between your finger and the candle and just pull the thread through it. That is waxed thread. So it's just a good tip, especially for something like this. It makes the cotton or the thread that you're working with a bit more manageable as well. So that's the first signature, that's done. And you can see those holes look a bit messy, but once you've actually sewn through them, they look fine. So that's the first signature. And of course, when you're sewing your signatures in as well, make sure they're the right way up. I've done that on a few occasions and I thought, oh, I've had to cut it and then pull all the thread out and do it again. So again, I'm going to hurry through this one a little bit. I'm just going through my pages. You can see that a bit of ephemera is still in there, but because the size of it, I didn't really feel that it was necessary completely to take it out. I've also moved this page as well because I didn't want the two smaller pages together. So again, this is a time to make sure you're 100% happy with your pages and what the layout is, make any adjustments that you see fit. So again, clipping that template in the centre. I'm just using the two clips you can see here, making my holes. I'm making the holes as well. You're just going to be confident and go for it. Don't overthink it. Don't think, oh, it's not perfectly in the centre. It's not this. It really, as long as it's pretty much in the centre, you're good to go. Don't get overwhelmed or stressed about it being absolutely spot on. In the grand scheme of it, when you start using your journal and you've filled it up with all the lovely things you're going to put inside it, you're not going to notice a hole that's slightly off-centred. I think that's the beauty of junk journaling as well. It does not have to be perfect. You can really kind of let yourself you know, have some freedom with it creatively. So again, starting in the middle, I've clipped my loose end at the bottom there, gone through the middle, and coming back up through one of those holes, going up to the top, through the spine again, and then I'm going to come back through the centre hole. Really, really simple. Such a good method, and you can do this method on the go. You can do this method with, like I say, with different materials and things. You can do it. You can make it look pretty. You can do it with little beads and things on the spine. A lot of people I've seen will like then thread some charms and some beads and things on. This method would be really good for that because you've got quite a bit of string at the back that would allow you to have little bits and things dangling on it. So yeah, you can get really creative with it. And as I say, it's something you can do on the go. I mean, when I say on the go, obviously no one's really going anywhere right now, but I mean like where I don't always sit at my desk and do this. I might take it into the front room, sit in front of the TV, this on my lap. It's just such a good technique. This one I wanted to show you, so this is actually my last signature. I've cut out the third one because it's just the same thing again. But this one was the only one that gave me not a problem. It wasn't a problem. It's like a slight little hiccup. I wanted to include it to show you just something to be mindful of. So everything's gone fine up until this point. Now I'm coming back through the centre hole, so that is all the stitching essentially done. Taking my clips off. As I go to tighten it here, I notice that my threads aren't tightening properly, and that's because I can see here that I've gone through the initial thread, so the first thread that was left clipped into the bulldog clip. I've managed to come through the middle hole, and I've separated some of the fibres, and I've gone through the fibres, so the threads are essentially threaded together. So all you do is just get your needle and just pull the one thread out of the other thread, and it separates them again, so you can pull it tight and tie them off nicely. That's the only hiccup that I ever have with this technique. Aside from getting my thread tangled around the bulldog clip sometimes, that's the only issue I've ever had with these. So it's just something to be mindful of. It's a really quick, simple fix. But the first time I did it, I was pulling away at it thinking, what is going on? And it was as simple as that. So you can see here mine are not perfect. I was rushing in this, so I was desperate just to get to use this journal. You can see here they're all together, they're in there, they look great. I'm really happy with it. There's not massive gaps between the signatures. I think they're just right, and there's space at the front and the back, so there's loads of room to grow for me to add all my fun things in there. And yeah, I'm just really chuffed with this, and that it's actually finally together and I can do some journal with me's, because I've got a few quotes and things saved on my phone that I want to get in here. So I'll show you now quickly a flip through of the journal. Now it's all been put together, so you can see what pages have actually been included, because the pages that I put together in the previous video where I did the pages are definitely not all the pages that are in my journal now, because I can't help myself. I've never been able to just stick to, once I'm happy with once I've got to the final piece, I'm always 100% happy with it. But if I'm even slightly just not resonating with something, I've got to adjust it, I've got to change it, because well, I can for a start, and that's the beauty of making your own journals, that you can, you know, have it 100% exactly as you want it. Like all these pages have been handpicked from the selection that I've got, and they're all, you know, in there intentionally, and yeah, so I can resonate with them all on some level, even if it's just the fact that I find them pretty. That's good enough for me. So yeah, all the pages that you see here obviously are in my personal journal. They're not all the same as the ones in the other journals that I'll make, which is why the journals are so unique. So I will go through some journal with me's. We'll talk a little bit about why I journal, what journaling helps me with, and what I use it for, especially when it comes to junk journaling and art journaling and things like that. So we'll go a bit more into that in some future videos. So until then, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye!